Welcome, everyone. I'd like to welcome to the show Karla. Karla, welcome. So glad that you're here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Now, Karla, I'd like to start off by asking you if you could share a little bit about your personal journey of, some of your childhood trauma that you experienced and how it shaped into who you are today. So let's go back to your childhood, like as far back as you could remember. What was it like?
Well, I've always remembered being with my grandparents. Like even when my mom was in my life, we were always living with my grandparents. So, everything seemed really good. Like I didn't really have any like negative feelings towards it until, I got a little bit older and the choices in her men, I could see like the negativity they would bring. And then what started it all was when I saw my mom getting beat up by one of her husband at the time.
So, like what age or how young were you when you moved in with your grandparents? Was like, do you have any memory of moving in, or that's what you always remembered to be living with them?
Yeah, I've always remembered just living with them. I didn't actually move in with my mom by herself until I was like 14. But childhood, I always remember being with my grandparents.
Did you like ever ask why? Like, why am I not living with mom and why am I living here? Or was it just kind of like natural to you?
It was just natural. I never really questioned it when I was real little. Of course, things would come out that, she was making bad choices and she was doing drugs and, just different things, but it was never really a question like, I'm supposed to be with my mother. Why am I not with her?
And what was life like with your grandparents? Just living, in your grandparents' house and like as a family unit.
It was really good. It was, of course, they was not ever really like affectionate, and I don't really remember them ever saying like I love you. My mom would. She would say I love you. But my grandparents, but I knew I was loved. I felt it, so there was
Yeah, I
never really
experienced
any
the same
negativity.
thing. Yeah. I can experience the same thing. I lived with my grandparents for quite a while in my early childhood. I knew I was loved. It was like a knowing that you were
Mhm.
loved, but they never didn't hug you, didn't kiss you, didn't say I love you. They just expressed it through other means, whether it was like feeding you or
Mhm.
giving everything that you needed, and provided you a safe place. You
Yeah.
just, accepted it as being, a way of being loved in some
Yeah.
form.
You just feel it, I guess,
Yeah.
in some type of way without the um what do you call like without them touching or saying like it's just known, like you said, it's known I'm loved, I'm safe here.
Yes. So what age did end up moving with your mom? Was it 14, you said?
Yeah, I was
And
14.
then what was that like once you moved in with her?
I was excited because everybody wants their mom, everybody wants to be with their mom, and then it was going to be different because I've always lived in this one place in this one house with my grandparents, but then it's kind of exciting when you get to move up and experience something different. But then at the same time, I respected my mom, but I didn't respect my mom at the same time. It was kind of like I hear what you're saying, but I really don't have to listen to you because you was never there raising me up, this whole time. So of course I would sneak out and of course I never left my neighborhood, but I would sneak out with my friends in the neighborhood and drink and do things I wasn't supposed to be doing.
Did you feel like a connection with your mom, or you never really got to develop that connection between mother and daughter?
I don't think we ever really had that bond. A connection, yes, because like I've always felt empathy for her and her actions, and like I miss, like she's not alive anymore, but I miss her and I wish she was here. So I think there was a connection, but there was never like a close bond like, mothers and daughters want to be with each other. I feel
Did
like I would
you
have been more of a daddy's girl, but he wasn't there either. So
do you feel like you developed that bond more, let's say, with your grandparents? Because I know I did. Like I always looked up my grandparents. I knew they were my grandparents, but to me, I formed that motherly and fatherly bond with them.
yeah, and I always I say he's my granddaddy, but my granddaddy is my daddy. My granddaddy is the one that taught me, how to drive, and he's the one that taught me how to do outside things. I was always like a tomboy growing up, and he's always like working with his hands and building, like he can do anything and build anything. And so like I learned from him. And then of course my grandmother, she's really the one that taught us how to drive. I remember we was like 14 coming home from the grocery store or something, and she'd pull over on the side of the road and let one of us get in the driver's seat and drive home. She trusted us enough to be able to do that. So like, and she always did homework with us. And so as I got older, I'm always calling them, not calling my mom, or of course not calling my dad. I need advice on this, or how to, I'm calling my grandparents.
Was your dad ever in your life, whatsoever?
He would pop in like every now and then, kind of like when it was convenient for him, or he always showed up at the important stuff, like my high school graduation. He was there. When I got married, the second time I had a wedding, he was there. He was there for all the births of my babies except for my youngest one, because he passed away before she was born. So like he was at the important things, but he wasn't there throughout my life.
So what made uh what happened that the decision was made for you to move in with your mom, at the age of 14?
She finally turned her life around because she was on drugs and of course got with the wrong men. And so she finally, I think she probably got saved and started going to church, reading the Bible. So like she went to rehab, so she was turning her life around. She was working consistently, had a, pretty good job, because she's always been like a people person. So she worked at like some kind of mental health home for people that couldn't take care of themselves. So she would go over there and stay with them. So she was doing really well for herself. And my grandparents probably, they could see it. And so they was like, yes, like, it's time. I'm sure they probably felt some kind of feeling once it was really happening, because we've been there the whole time. And then, we're leaving, but, they know that's how it's supposed to be. So it's not like they were ever like, no, you're not taking them, kind of thing. They always let us go with her.
So she would always pop in here and there to spend time with you guys. It was just not safe for you to live with her.
Yeah, a lot of times she would live with us at my grandparents' house. Like maybe if she was having a hard time with whoever she was with then, if they would break up or whatever. I really don't even know what the scenarios are, but she would move in, but then she would move back out. Then she would move back in and then move back out. So like we would still get to go spend a night at her house if she didn't live there. We'd get to go spend the night for like a week or something. And then of course something would happen. One of them was probably hitting on her. Of course, we didn't know unless it was one of the times that we actually saw it. And then, we'd go back to our grandparents' house.
So tell us, walk us through what happened once you move in with your mom. What was that experience that you went through?
I really don't remember. It was like, it seemed pretty easy. I had my own room. I didn't have to, because like when at my grandparents' house, when my mom would move in, I'd have to share a room with her. Like she would move into my room. So then I had my own room. I had my own space. So that was nice. I had like my own bathroom. And it was kind of like freedom kind of feeling, because, my grandparents, they weren't like super strict, but like I couldn't do a whole lot of what I wanted to do. And then the neighborhood I moved into, there were kids my age in there. So it was like friends are all around, and so it was fine. I feel like it was fine.
until something happened. So tell us about, the incident that really um, put a dent in your life and really
That,
traumatized you.
yeah, that was when I was younger. I was still living with my grandparents, but I was spending the night at my mom's house. Me and my sister, we were asleep in the bedroom. And this is somebody my mom was married to at the time. Well, this lady, I remember this lady coming in there and waking me and my sister up, to get us out of the house. When I walked into the living room, my mom was being knocked down by her husband. He was hitting her, and she would stand back up and he'd hit her again, and stand back up and he'd hit her again. And you just see blood. And it's like, I'm seeing this. She's not defending herself. Like, she's not trying to fight back. She's just standing back up, and he's knocking her back down. And then other people in the room, they're swishing us out, but they're not stopping him from hitting her. And so that really was like, I think that was like the turning point for me when I saw that, because it was like, there will never be a man treat me like that. Like, why are you not defending yourself, and why are y'all not helping her? So that turned me into the protector. Of course, I didn't really fully get into it until probably I got grown. It was probably always there, but you're not going to mess with my sister. You're not going to mess with my kids. You're not going to mess with friends. You're not, because I'm going to be the one to protect them. So it was like, not seeing anybody protect her. Nobody can protect me better than me. Nobody can protect you better than me, because I'm going to make sure you're protected too.
So you came up with this defense mechanism for yourself. Now, how did that, affect you and your relationships as you grew older?
It really wasn't that great, because I was always more in my masculine energy. So my spouses or boyfriends, it did not really allow them to be in their masculine, because I was always like, I'm going to provide for myself. If I want something, I'm going to get it. Not even giving them the opportunity really to try to provide. And then, of course, I'm the protector too. Well, the man's role is supposed to be to protect and provide, but I've taken over that. So, it's like two masculine energies is like button heads, but it's always that defense mechanism popping up, from that trauma. For me, that's why I'm not even going to give you that much power to be able to provide or to protect.
Because you're going to be in control.
Yes, definitely very controlling. My way or the highway. That's it.
And how has that affected with your relationship between you and your kids?
They feel safe around me for sure. Like, they
For
know that,
sure.
they know like that, and they'll tell you too. There's like, ain't nobody gonna mess with me, because my mama will go beat them up. My mama's gonna protect me. So like, they feel 100% safe that nobody else is coming for them, because mama's gonna be there.
Do you feel like you've become like a little bit controlling? Not just your relationships, but being a mom as well to make sure that their safety is there in some way.
Yeah, I've had to let go of a lot of the control, and that really took effect. Because I've been married 4 times and I've been divorced 3. So I've had to let that control go after my last divorce. So I was like, something's got to change here, and it's not particularly what they're doing. It's like, it's me. I know I'm the problem here, because, you know,
You're
I'm
the
looking at other
common factor.
relationships. Yeah, I'm looking at other relationships and looking at, okay, this is how it should be. Why can't I do that? So I've had to do like a lot of the inner work to just let go of control and kind of let things be and step into my feminine energy. That's why my husband and I now are doing so freaking phenomenal, because I've been able to let that go. Not
So
all
tell
the
us.
way, but
Yeah, well, I want to know more about how you went about doing that. Like, what was the triggering point? I know the last divorce with the last husband was like, okay, something's got to change, but was there anything else in your life that really pushed you to like, okay, I gotta do something now?
I think it was actually started with my second failed marriage, because he and I were together 7 years and we had 4 kids together, and I had 2 previous and he had 1. So we had 7 kids total. And I ended up becoming a stay-at-home mom because we were having babies. So I had to depend on him to provide for me. But at the same time, I was still being in control, like of the finances, of the household, everything else. Basically, he just went to work. That's what he was there for, was basically to provide. And of course, I always kept all my relationships at arm's distance. It's like, I want you here, but I don't want you too close. It's basically, I don't know. You're just here for my benefit, and that's it. Even having all those kids with this one man, it was still the same feeling. Then I found out that he had been cheating on me. And that right there, I think that was like the aha moment of spiraling down, like feeling so low. And it was like, I depended on this person, and I knew I was not, a good wife. I was not doing my part as a wife and, loving him correctly, but I didn't know how to do that. So that's really once I found out he had cheated, and I tried to forgive him and I couldn't. Like, I can't forgive you and still live in the same house. But then he ended up moving out, and it was like I had nothing, which before, when I found out and I decided because I tried to forgive him and I couldn't. So then I was like, well, I got to do something to be able to take care of all these kids, because I had 6, personally, that I have to take care of after this divorce is final. So I went to school for welding, because before that I was a stay-at-home mom, and before that I waited tables, and I knew waiting tables was not gonna pay my bills and feed all these kids. So I went to school for welding and did that. And then as soon as I applied for my job and got hired there, I told him, like, it was like, I'm done, it's over. And he moved out, and I had nothing. Like, I had no money. He hadn't been paying the mortgage or anything for the past 2 or 3 months. So I got an eviction, or not an eviction letter, but like the house was going in foreclosure. So then it's like, holy crap, So I knew, like, at that point, if I wanted a relationship to work in the future, that I had to change myself. I'm not saying him cheating is my fault, because that's a choice he made, but I did contribute to a lot of the factors of him not getting his needs met. At the same time, I wasn't really getting my needs met because I was in control the whole time.
Right. So what were some of the things, what type of like therapy or help did you get to help you to realize the changes that you had to make?
Well, after it took us a year to get divorced, and then I got into a relationship with my next failed marriage, and we actually went to couples counseling. And at the beginning of he and our relationship, like, because he was just from the beginning, like, total opposite of what I wanted and needed in my life. So, like, right off the bat, he was like sitting beside me, and he was on a dating app and messaging all these girls, want to hook up, this, that, and the other. And he actually messaged one of my friends, and she sent me a screenshot, and then I kicked him out. But he was like kind of like a leech and just wouldn't leave. He would just come, I don't know. Anyway, and I kept taking him back. So then I was like, well, we need to go to couples counseling so we can get all this fixed. And even in there, I just had a lot of hostility towards him. Then we started talking about, like, the childhood trauma and the inner child. So then I was like, I need to start coming to counseling by myself and work, like, on me, not us. Because if I'm not healthy and I don't have a good relationship with myself, I need to work on me. So that's when I started doing, like, the inner child work, and kind of did some hypnotherapy. But then COVID hit, and the counselor was like worried, I guess, about the COVID, and I could wear a mask in there, but he wanted me to go get the COVID vaccine. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. So then I quit going, but then I was kind of got the tools while I was there. to be able to start working on myself with myself.
That's awesome. Now, what advice would you give to somebody who have experienced like similar trauma like you did? Which there's a lot of individuals out there who have come from parents where, they're drug addicts. So they just had this crazy life where they just couldn't provide or be there for their children. What kind of advice would you give them for those individuals who are coming or still struggling with that type of childhood trauma?
I definitely recommend seeking out help, especially if you don't know what to do to get the tools. Either get you a coach or go to therapy or something like that, because if you don't, it's definitely going to keep showing up in all of your relationships. I highly recommend doing shadow work. You can get you a book on Amazon, shadow work book on Amazon, and go through that, fill all that out, but really like go down to the core. Don't just write surface level answers, like really just feel it and work through it that way. But it's easier, I feel like, if you have somebody in your corner or somebody that's there to kind of guide you along the way. Because if you get stuck in something and you're by yourself, you're either just going to give up or maybe make yourself a little bit more depressed or whatever. So
Right. And
definitely,
sometimes, we kind of suppress so many things that it's hard to get to that core on your own. You kind of need somebody to really guide you through the process and pull that out of you, especially if you've shoved it down so
yeah,
far
because
down that you can, it's not no longer in the surface.
one of my core, and I didn't even know I had this core problem, and it keeps coming up, and I finally revealed what it is, and it's abandonment. But I
Mm-hmm.
never felt abandoned. I never thought I was abandoned, even though I was. But I've always had my grandparents there, so it's like in my mind, in my child mind, in my adult mind, I never abandoned never even came up. So it was just at first I was feeling like rejection, but that wasn't quite it. And I just had to keep digging in it. It is abandonment. Like, hello,
Mm-hmm.
duh.
Yeah, what a lot of individuals don't realize is you spent 9 months inside your mother. You had a conscious there, and whatever she was going through, you felt it. You were
Mm,
observing her feelings. If she was going through, an emotional roller coaster where she was worried about, oh my God, I have this baby. I don't know how I'm going to provide for this baby. I can't take care of this baby. I'm going to have to give up this baby. And all of those emotions that the mother's going through, you are going to interpret that as, oh my God, I'm not wanted in this world. My mother's going to have to give me up because you're trying to process whatever is coming through your mother, but you don't, you're not even born yet. You haven't developed yet. Your emotional skill set's not there yet. So you start filling in the blanks of all of these things. Your mind starts filling it in and saying, well, you don't deserve to be here. You're not wanted. Who are you?
mm,
I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy. And all these things. And we don't realize it. And because we're just a fetus or just a baby, that is not really in a conscious level. It's more on a subconscious level. And you don't realize that you program that into your subconscious that early. So consciously, you just remember, well, I had a good life with my grandparents because
yeah.
consciously that's what I remember. But it's the part that you put in your subconscious that you don't remember.
Yeah. And it's wild the things that have come up, because even like injustice has come up lately. And it's like, where did that come from? Well, probably because he did this bad thing to her and he's still alive for it. Like, and she's not here, or like even at work, if somebody's taking their sweet time doing something and I'm waiting on them, but then I tell my boss about it, my boss don't, injustice. So that's something that's come up, but I've never put a word on it. I've never really felt like, but then the more you sit there and dig, and it's wild because I've never just sat with my feelings, like, because I'm a welder. So when I drop that hood, I try to keep positive things in my ear, because before I would just see that movie playing of him beating her up all the time, every single day, every day, and just anger would just take over and take over and take over, and of course it rolls over into the rest of my life too. But since I've worked through all of that, I tried it for the first time Monday, and I was able to go weld through 2 buses without earbuds or anything positive. And that's when like all this stuff started coming up. Like I can listen to my higher self and actually sit there with the feelings, let them know that they're okay to be there, feel what it feels like, where it's at in my body, and just let it float on by. And it's like, holy crap. Like,
Isn't
I
that
guess that's what
wonderful when we're able to master this, this skill? It's like the best thing that you could ever achieve. If we could all achieve, that type of control.
yeah, it's like
It's not
holy,
about
like,
controlling other people or on the physical level, what everybody, it's really the only control you need is your thoughts and what goes through your mind and flows through your mind.
yeah. And once you do that, it's like you're seeing everything, through a whole different lens. Of course, you're probably looking at other people like, what is wrong with you? But, you have empathy at the same time. You're just like, yes, I've been there. I'm like, I've been that person. Like, but I know how to help you. I know what to do. But a lot of times they're not ready and they don't want to listen either.
Yeah, but that's, they're going through their own development, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
really nothing to do with you. Now, what do you think do you think there's like common misconceptions about childhood trauma that people probably have? Or like have you ever encountered where you're misjudged based on, you know, your past or how you behaved and not really took the time to understand you and what you've been through?
Yeah, because on the surface level, people see you as angry or mad or too much or whatever. But really, like I said, for me, it was the abandonment. I'm not mad. I'm just feeling this way. I'm feeling abandoned because I don't know. Like we went on a Christmas trip and my husband walked out of the room, but he didn't even tell me like he was leaving the room. Now he went like 2 floors down to where the kids were to the theater room. But I'm thinking he's there the whole time because we're playing like the arcade games or whatever. And I turn around and he's gone. And that feeling just instantly, like, where'd he go? He didn't tell me he was going anywhere. So of course, I sent him a message like, thanks for telling me, you were going somewhere. But then when I really sat there with it and was feeling through it, that's what it was. I felt abandoned, even though I wasn't. I had to talk myself through that was a lie, what my mind made up, because he was just 2 floors down and he didn't leave to go anywhere. He didn't abandon me. So it is a lot of misconceptions because even people think when you're a child, that was child stuff. They don't really understand that it's still there. It's still in your subconscious and it's still coming out all the time. That's what they call like your shadows or whatever. So it's important to do the shadow work so you can understand your feelings and where they're coming from, where they're actually stemming from. So then you can challenge your thoughts that you have and change them into something different.
Did you ever felt like you're misjudged because people didn't like really understand you, especially like in your acts of anger or just in your relationships?
Oh yeah, for sure. Which I always thought I was doing everything right. I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. But in their eyes, they're probably like, she's angry all the time. She always tells me what to do. She's nagging, da 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 da. But even him, he didn't know. Like he don't know what he don't know either. As far as like, I'm sure he had a lot of childhood things in him because he was like my kid's dad. He was always like laid back, quiet, kind of passive type. But I feel like that's also probably some kind of trauma response to where you can't say how you're feeling or if something bothers you. Of course, at the time we didn't know. Like I was not even nowhere near this mind frame that I'm at now to even know that I needed to work on myself. And so I'm sure he didn't either. So there was probably misunderstandings on both sides. Looking back at it now, for
Of
sure,
course,
all of my
we all experience some type of trauma. We all do. You know, the level of it is just different for each individual.
yeah. And like at work, if I think something is not fair or whatever, and my boss is like telling me what to do, like he's not coming at me respectfully. He's like coming at me like nobody likes to be told what to do. You know, he's like, well, you need to go over here and do this. And then of course I'm getting louder, but I'm not yelling, but I'm much more passionate. So one time he sent me home. He's like, you can't come back until HR calls. So I just went straight to HR and explained the situation, you know, and went on home. And she called me as soon as I got home. But of course, he was misunderstanding, obviously, but I probably came off as being disrespectful to him too. So, you know, it's both
So,
sides.
so let me ask you, so ever since you started going on this journey of being self-aware of your thoughts and your emotions, have you noticed a shift in the relationships that you have, even just between you and coworkers, even just between you and your boss, not just, you know, your personal relationships? Have you noticed a shift?
Yes, I have. So, like, I'm a welder. And I had like a couple of missing welds because, you know, it goes through the bus goes through a process. And then at the end of our process in the weld shop, you know, they have to look for snags or whatever, which is like stuff you've missed or things that have to be grinded or whatever. And I had like, I don't know, 8 missing welds. And I'm just like, I don't even know what happened. So he was like, dang, you need to open your eyes. And I was like, well, let's look at the positive side of this. The rest of it's welded. You know, so to me, that was like a huge show. He's like, oh, so we're being positive now. And I'm like, yes, we are.
But you know, isn't that wonderful? Because you start seeing and that how you feel inside gets reflected on the outside.
Yeah. And then like if you can express like your downfalls and your mishaps or whatever, because like for me, previous to starting this work on myself, it was like it was all their fault. They did this and they did this and they, you know, I never even thought about, and of course inside I'm thinking, well, I did do this, but I would never speak it out loud. So when I um started my coaching journey, you know, that's what I had to do was tell my story. And that's really the first time I put it out into public and to everybody that, hello, I'm the problem. I was the problem, you know, and had to speak on my mishaps and my downfalls. And it was scary. But once you do it, it's like a whole weight has been lifted. It's like the veil's coming off. The layers are getting peeled back.
It's liberating, isn't it?
It is very.
Now, do you have any advice for anybody that's going through this journey just like you? What advice would you give them?
Just have empathy with yourself, be compassionate towards yourself. Don't judge yourself because I think the judgment is the biggest fear, especially when you think other people are judging you for your actions. You don't know what you don't know until you know it, and then you can't unsee it. So if you're going through these things, get you some support. It's not somebody that's going to tell you what you want to hear, but somebody that's going to tell you the hard things, you know, things you need to change and help you through that. Somebody that's not there to judge you, but to help you. Because if not, then all your relationships are going to feel it. Even like I still have to work and still you know, like growing up with the non-affection. I'm not affectionate. You know, when my kids were babies, it was very easy. But as they get older and taller and bigger, I don't, it's hard for me to be affectionate with them. Like my oldest daughter, she's 20 and she's like, Mom, hug me like you love me, you know, and So I just give her a hug, but it's not something that I'm that comfortable with, I think, because it was
It's not
never,
familiar to you.
yeah, it's not
And
familiar. It's unfamiliar territory. Even though they're my kids, I birthed them and I nurtured them and hugged them and loved them growing up as babies and toddlers. But older is just still a little bit weird to me. So that's something that I'm having to work with, because my 12-year-old son, he'll come hug me all the time because I don't really go to them and hug them. So if he wants that hug, they all have to come to me pretty much.
but that's something. It's something you can learn. It's a habit
Yeah.
that you can install, and the more you do it, the more then it becomes more familiar. So don't reject when they come.
No, I don't
Embrace
ever
it.
reject them.
Yeah. Sometimes we're just not in a mood, right? Or we just don't want to be bothered, and it's natural for parents to say, "Oh, not right now. I'm busy," or, I don't feel like hugging. But it's about learning how to really just be vulnerable and embrace those moments and let them become more and more familiar to us.
Yeah, because
Um,
I would never say no, I'm not in the mood for a hug, but it's a lot of times it's like a quick hug. It's like a in passing kind of hug. But I really got to practice stopping and being more in the moment. Like he was having, he's 12, so he's probably going through some changes, and he's just real sensitive right now. So one day he was having like this mental breakdown crying, and I was like, stand up. And I just hugged him, and I just didn't let him go for, about 5 minutes to kind of calm himself. Like, okay, this is probably what he needs. Let me just do this real quick, and it helped him a lot. And ever since then, that's when he's been, well, if I walk by, he'll grab me for a hug or something like that.
yeah, sometimes teenagers, that's all they need, really. They don't want to hear what we have to say. They just want somebody there for them, whether to hug them or just to listen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's just enough. Just that hug is all they need. And sometimes they'll just start crying. Tears will just come out without saying anything. you
Yeah.
know, it's just about us allowing to give them that little space, that
Mm-hmm.
it's okay for them to express themselves. And again, you know, it's a journey that it's forever where we're always healing. We don't have to know everything all at once. Nobody's ever gonna know what to do, the right thing, or heal overnight. The healing process is its own journey.
Yeah.
And
And I mean, you evolve every single day. Like I'm not the same person today I was yesterday. It's always something new. It's like, okay, I see this now, so it's like every day, as long as you're doing the work, as long as you're willing to put in the work, and you want to change, you want to be your best self, you have to put in the work. You can't just keep doing the same things you've been doing, or you're going to keep getting the same results.
you're absolutely right. Now, Carla, what are you doing now? So you're sharing your story, and how do you want to, are you hoping that your story will help somebody? How do you want to affect people or help them by sharing your story?
I definitely hope that maybe somebody can get that aha moment, as if like, if she can do it, I can do it. Because I'm hard headed, I'm stubborn. It's like my way or no way, but it can change. They always say can't teach an old dog new tricks, but that's a lie. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, that's a lie. Like your mindset, it starts when you're a child. But the good thing about the brain is you can reset it anytime you want to. You just have to be willing to put in the work. So that's why I coach women to attract high quality men, because I've always drawn in the what I thought, whatever you're thinking, you're going to attract that back to you, because you're like an energy magnet. So what you're putting out is what you're getting back. And I always thinking, well, I can't have a relationship like that, like they have, or all men are liars, all men are cheaters. So that's what I would kept attracting in. So if you can shift your mindset around that, magical things happen. It took me a lot of years to realize that. So I came up with like the shortcut. So that's why I help women get there in like 12 weeks versus the 20 something years I had to go through. So, and even
And
with men, it's kind of it's the same, but I don't really relate to men because I'm not a man. I've had a lot of men in my life, but it's to me I connect more with the women because I feel like, okay, that was me, I did that too, like we're kind of one and the same. I mean, you'd be surprised at how many people in the world is just like you.
that's right, right? It's once you start this journey, you realize I'm not alone on this journey.
Yeah.
So, how can people reach out to you, let's say, if they're stuck and getting into the right relationship and they're needing help? They're kind of going through this self-awareness and wanting to shift. What are some of the things that perhaps you help them with realize, or how can they reach out to you to get the type of help that they need?
Um, they can find me on Facebook. Just search my name, Karla Huckaba. I don't know if you want to put that in your show notes. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I'll put it in the.
But it's Karla with a K, Huckaba. And that's mainly where I hang out. I am on Instagram at be.unapologetically you. And that's really my main two networks right now. I have just started a TikTok. So if you want to follow me on TikTok, your number one love coach, I'm on there too. But I'm just getting started there, just now getting followers there. So Facebook would probably be the best bet to be able to reach me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Karla, for coming on and sharing your story. It was a pleasure having you here.
Yeah, I was excited. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Please share, like, and subscribe so you can get notified on the next episodes that we publish. So until next time.